everyone. This is the Crime Cafe, your podcasting source of great crime, suspense, and thriller writing. I'm your host, Debbi Mack. Before I bring on my guest, I'll just remind you that the Crime Cafe has 2 ebooks for sale, the 9-book box set and the short story anthology. You can find the buy links for both on my website, debbimack.com, under the Crime Cafe link. You can also get a free copy of either book if you become a Patreon supporter. You'll get that and much more if you support the podcast on Patreon, along with our eternal gratitude for doing so. But first, let me put in a good word for Blueberry Podcasting. I'm a Blueberry affiliate, but that's not the only reason I'm telling you this. I've been using Blueberry Podcasting as my hosting service for my podcast for years, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made. They give great customer service. You're in complete control of your own podcast. You can run it from your own website, and it just takes a lot of the work out of podcasting for me. I find for that reason that it's a company that I can get behind 100% and say, you should try this. Try Blueberry. It doesn't require a long-term contract, and it's just a great company, period. And it also has free technical support by email, video, and phone, so you can get a human being there. Isn't that nice? Hi, everyone. My guest today is a doctor who studied emergency medicine and works in emergency rooms, I presume. She's received many accolades for her work, including a Derringer Award for Best Short Story of 2023 and finalist for the Silver Falchion for Best Thriller. She also writes medical humor, which I find fascinating and want to know more about, and has won speculative fiction awards as well. It's my pleasure to have with me today Melissa Yee. Hi, Melissa. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you on, believe me, and your background just fascinates me. I used to be an EMT, and my husband was a firefighter. He's retired now, but so I can thoroughly appreciate the whole hectic thing involving emergency rooms, what that must be like. Do you still practice medicine?
I do, not as much as I did, but I still like to keep my hand in.
Excellent.
And I just have to say, good for you guys, because now you can sleep. The nights are so hard.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember getting up in the middle of the night to go on calls, and it was like, whoa. I mean, sometimes those 5 in the morning ones were the worst. Like right before the dawn, I would get into the back of the ambulance and I would just feel nauseous. I couldn't
Oh, I
explain
bet.
why.
Yeah, because that's a very physical job also. Like for me, I would say 3, 4 a.m. is tough, because it's like you've been working so long, but there's still so much to go. To me, 5, 6, people are starting to wake up. Normal people are alive at this time. It's not so bad. You might start to get some sort of backup, but the middle of the night, like really you're it. And I just find that very tough and very bad for circadian rhythms.
Oh, yeah, really. I mean, I was much younger then, so I could adjust to it a little more easily, I suppose. But I've always been sort of in awe of people who go to medical school, because I went to law school and the med school was right down the street from me. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm so overwhelmed with work, but what if I were in med school? Oh my God, you guys have to study all these bones, all these muscles, all these nerves. It just amazes me. What
I
do you
think
think?
law school is very cognitively taxing, though. I think there's
Oh,
so much
very.
paper
Yes,
involved, so that it's a different kind of stress.
very much
The
so.
stress for medicine is really holding people's lives in your hands. That's the stressful part for medicine.
Yes. That to me has always been like, whoa, you guys are really in there, doing stuff, fixing people's medical problems, things like that. What is it that inspired you to create Dr. Hope C?
Very good.
Thank
Um,
you.
for me, I honestly, there were a few things, but I practice. So I'm from Ontario in Canada, and the medical system is was relatively good when I went to medical school. And then people probably don't know this, but in Canada, the federal government has the money, and then they give the money to the different provinces. And when you finish medical school, you get matched anywhere in the country. Like, well, you don't have to apply everywhere, but a lot of people apply, you know, across the board. And so you could end up, you know, Newfoundland to BC sort of thing. And I ended up in Quebec, in Montreal, Quebec, which is actually not far from Ottawa, my hometown. It's only 2 hours drive away. But for me, the medical system was mind-blowingly different. Like, because it's a different province. So first of all, the nurses had been on strike because they were amongst the lowest paid, and so the morale was not good. And they also had to draw all their own blood. Like, there was no phlebotomist to do that, and I was like, wow, that's strange. And then it started coming on to me, like being like, okay, well, you do the electrocardiogram. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. I thought you were a nurse. Sorry. And she's like, well, I am a nurse. And I said, oh, okay, but you don't do electrocardiograms? And she's like, not on this floor. So there were all these regulations that ended up just like everything was being dumped on everybody, basically. And it was really tough, and for patients to just be waiting in the emerge, and even if you're admitted, you still have to wait for days, maybe. Everything was so stressful that subconsciously, I think it made me think of murder. And I think also that for me, I just wanted to be able to battle something that wasn't disease, that wasn't bacteria, you know, or viruses. Like, have some sort of thing that you could physically fight and find justice. So in my head, I was like, wouldn't it be great if there was a physician, a resident doctor like myself, who saves lives but also fights crime? And so that's when Dr. Hope C was born.
Oh, that is so cool. And I see you have a kind of a separate sub-series, perhaps, in, what is it called? The Hope C, Seven
Seven
Deadly
Deadly Sins.
Sins? Is
Yes,
that
that's
like
what I'm working on.
an offshoot?
Yes, yes. Yes, so the first series is finished. Those are 9 novels. And the difference is, in these ones, obviously, it's about the 7 deadly sins. And they also have a supernatural element. So again, I just don't know how my mind works, but one of the main characters, like Hope's best friend, basically just turned around basically and said, I can talk to ghosts. And I was like, what? Like, you never mentioned this before. But Tori, like, she doesn't talk to people a lot. She keeps things very close to her chest. And so it took like until like 7 or 9 months before she told Hope that she could do this. And so the last book, White Lightning, there are ghosts in it, but then I was just like, this next series will just unleash the supernatural as well as medicine and thrillers. So just mashing everything up.
That sounds fascinating to me. I love the idea of mixing these kind of different genre elements in: supernatural, paranormal, mystery, medical thriller. Fantastic. I think that's great.
Well, I'm glad that you're so flexible. I think for some people it would just be like a big no, but for me, that's what makes it exciting, is to be able
Exactly.
to, you.
I love that, actually. I just think it's fantastic. Really, I
Well,
love it when
bless you.
people mix genres up. I mean, there are other books out there that I am like wild about because they bring in other elements from other genres for that very reason. Um, you obviously have a lot of professional experience working in the ER and so forth, and in medicine, but are there areas that you still need to research when you write a novel?
All the time. Oh my goodness. Yes, for sure. Like, the first book in the 7 Deadly Sins series is Wrath. It's called The Shapes of Wrath, and it's set in the operating room. And I was like, hey everybody, it's been a long time since I, have been on surgery or anesthesia. Can you help me? And so they're a group of women physicians who are wonderful, wonderful. And so they step forward to talk to me. And I'm just like, thank God there are all these people who are smarter than me who can just fact check me the whole time. And in fact, each other, like everybody has their own area of expertise. And one of them would be like, you know, well, if it were a patent for Amino Valley, and the other one would be like, no, that would cause this instead. And then this would be a whole discussion, and I would just be like, okay, the final answer is just put that part in.
Oh, goodness. So where is it that you would ultimately see your series of books going, this latest one?
Are you asking me
What's your plan?
how
Do you have a
it would
number?
end? Yeah. So it's actually interesting to me because with my previous series, I would just let my subconscious go and somehow tie things together, which was pretty interesting, but now I'm like the 7 deadly sins. So that's very helpful to give me something more concrete. And from the very beginning, actually, I was really attracted to the idea of doing forensic psychiatry, again, which I don't have a lot of knowledge of. And a doctor in North Bay was like, oh, do you want to visit? I'm a forensic psychiatrist and you can stay at my house. And I'm like, yes, I would like that very
Wow.
much. So I thought about it a lot. And I probably have heard of National Novel Writing Month, where you tried to write
Mm-hmm.
a book a month. And so last year, what I did was I tried to write a little bit of all the sins, or like of the ones that I hadn't done yet, to figure out what I was going to do for each book. And I ended up deciding that I was going to do Pride last, and that it was going to be forensic psychiatry.
Hmm.
So the difference with this series is I know that the some of the players from the previous novels in the series will come out and be involved in the final book.
Uh-huh. And what are you working on now?
Sloth.
Sloth.
Yes, because February
Oh.
1st, I have I have Gluttony, which is sugar and vice. And that one was so much fun because I love to eat. Like, it's one of my big passions in life. Like, I am somebody who, like, strangers have commented on my eating.
Huh.
So yeah, so like for example, in Montreal is French, like has a very strong French culture. And I was at a French restaurant there, and a woman came over and was like, oh, I just wanted to tell you that my husband and I bake, and we were watching you eat the bread, and I told him if everybody ate bread like that woman, we would never go out of business. And I was just like, okay, you know. And like
Well,
someone has offered me to share a dessert with me and stuff, because like I was just like, oh, but what do I choose in the rest? And then they're like, well, do you want to try mine and then you'll know? And I was like, yes, I would absolutely love to do that. And my husband, who's an introvert, is just like, this is so strange. Whereas I'm like, whereas I'm like, oh, this is good. I thank you so much for sharing your dessert with me. Like I really love meeting people and having adventures, like even mini adventures. So Gluttony was great. It was actually a little bit of more work for me because like I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? And if I could tell a little story,
uh-huh,
Debbie, like
sure.
I'd
Absolutely.
always wanted to go to this restaurant called Au Noir, with the letter O, and which is where there's no light, for the, like, noir is black in French, and
Mm-hmm.
it's in complete darkness. And so you don't see your food, you don't see your companions, you don't see the servers. The people who work there are that, their sight is limited, so whether they're completely legally blind or close to. And it's a big adjustment to go in there. So I was just like, well, I'm doing Gluttony, now is my chance to go to Au Noir. So I did.
Hmm.
And I didn't end up incorporating that one in my book, but that was a very interesting experience. Like, just how anxious I was to step behind the curtain where I couldn't see was very strange. So the server was totally fine. Well, was calling out and like whistling and using echolocation to walk, and of course knew the layout, no problem. Whereas I was like lingering behind, being like, okay, where am I going in this black room?
Wow.
Um, and like you can pick surprise dish. Like if you want, you can just they'll just surprise you and you don't know what you're going to be eating that night. I'm a bit of a control freak, so I did choose my food. But to tell you the truth, like when I finished eating, was like, "Well, I don't know if I got it all, and no one can see me, so I just used my fingers to finish it off, and it's all good." Like,
That's a very interesting story and a very interesting restaurant, it sounds like. Boy,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the best thing is that you can research cool stuff when you're writing.
they should call you the extroverted omnivore.
Oh, I love it. Oh, thank you.
That'll be my nickname for you now.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Who are your favorite authors? Who inspires you as a writer?
Oh, I have a ton of favorite authors.
Of
I do
course.
have a YA that's going to be coming out, so I have been reading a little bit more. So, at Thriller Fest, which is one of the awards that I have won with the BIPOC scholarship to Thriller Fest, I met Maureen Johnson, and I just re-listening to her books now, and she makes me laugh all the time. So right now I'm
Mm.
on The Box in the Woods. Um, Dragons were in Sugar and Vice. So I picked up Robin Hobb, Hobb, and I love her so much. Like she writes sets of trilogies basically, and her world is so complex. Like it made me understand the world as well as the characters and everything. It was like, her description of gentrification, for example. I was like, yes, that is what happens to artists who get pushed out and everything. But in her case, it was people who live in the trees and stuff like that. It was beautifully, beautifully done.
Hmm.
Um, and then for mysteries, because this is a crime, Maureen Johnson is a mystery author. But I'll just say I always love Chris Scott, Jim Dresden, and Dana Stabenow. Are you cannot go wrong with those three for me.
Awesome. Sounds good. If someone made a movie or TV show based on your books, who would you imagine playing Hope? Who would you want to play Hope?
Okay, okay. I just have to tell you, we have a play.
Yeah,
So,
I was gonna
so
say, what's the
yes.
play about? I want to know about that play.
Okay, so I do have somebody playing Hope, and her name is Stephanie Valeshkin Higano. And she is lovely. Like just seeing the emotion play across her face is very moving. I,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so interesting to see somebody else personify, the person who's basically me in residency. So I love that very much. So I know that the vast majority of people have not seen her act, but if you want to, you could come to Ottawa February 8th to 10th, and then you would be able to get a glimpse of her talent. Um,
Wow.
so I have had the other person. We did have another actor play her as well, who was very talented. So I've been so lucky to have um, had people bring Hope to life. Oh, and I also have audiobooks. And so
That's
Carmilla
fantastic.
Joe read the Red Shapes of Wrath.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Isn't it something amazing when you hear other people say the lines that you of the characters you create, and maybe it's a little bit different, but it's awesome than you imagined it. That's the way it's been for me anyhow.
Yes, congratulations to you. Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, before this, I did not understand the role of the director as well in it. So I find it just interesting because I don't think as visually as I could. So it's also humbling to see the like just physical shape that it can take, which is very beautiful. So hats off to Micah.
All right. Excellent. Is let's see. What sort of humor books do you write? You write medical humor books? I'm
Well,
intrigued by that.
okay, yes, cool. So I write for the Medical Post, and that ends up being essays that are less than 1,000 words, mostly like quite often funny and quite often just odd things that happen to me in the emergency department. And then I just gather them together into books. So a book called The Most Unfeeling Doctor in the World and Other True Tales from the Emergency Room was an Amazon bestseller when it came out. Like people really enjoyed hearing about it. But I'll just as an aside, there are also people who read it who didn't enjoy it, of course. But in general, people just thought it was interesting to
Well, it
see
sounds
what. Like.
really interesting. Yeah. Sounds great. Somebody should do that for lawyers.
Yes. Oh, did you end up practicing law then?
Oh, yeah, I did for 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
I even had my
EMT,
own office for a
lawyer.
while. The
Awesome.
stories I could tell, the stories other people could tell, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm going to tell you two things. So the best, well, a bestseller sort of side by side with me was an EMT, and of course, Scott Turow and
uh-huh.
John Grisham and everybody. So go crazy with your lawyer and EMT and whatever else stories. Like there's a market for them. People want to know.
Oh boy. Well, I'd really have to get in touch with some of my husband's friends then, because I'm sure that they have lots of stories. Let's see. I was going to ask you some, oh, advice. What advice would you give to anybody who would like to write for a living?
This is a question I ask everybody. Who makes a life in the creative arts. I find it fascinating because for me, I feel like I took it. For me, it was the correct way, which was that I wanted to be able to support myself, and I didn't trust that that writing or the arts could do that for me. So that's why, honestly, that I went into medicine. That I just was like, I'm going to be my own patron of the arts. I'm going to be able to always put a roof over my own head, and over my children's head. It was very important to me. Um, Even though my boyfriend, who became my husband, had said he would support me, I just wanted that independence. And it also gave me a lot of stories, so it ended up working out. The advice I would give to other people would be, one of the things that nobody told me that I wish they had told me was that it's very important to make friends. People always tell you, well, write a good book. Yes, write a good book. Market your book, market your book. But also, other people lift you up. And it's not, well, like, and I do it too. And it's not that you're trying to exclude anybody, because I love to include people. But if you've worked with somebody and you know them and they're a good writer and they're easy to deal with, it's just so much easier to reach out and be like, hey, like, I know this project. Do you want to join me? Or, do you want to be on my podcast or on my YouTube channel? Whatever it is, like, it's just a lot easier. So if you're at home and you're an introvert and you're writing, like, that's good because you're honing your craft. But it's also good if you can, join an organization, go to a conference. I know people are moving away from Twitter, but Blue Sky, whatever. Like, just if you can make friends, that is key. You will help rise together.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Um, is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up?
Um, I guess I'll just plug one more time that the book that's coming out is called Sugar and Vice, and the play that's coming out is called Terminally Ill.
Boy, I want to go to Ottawa now and see this thing.
Yes, please. We'd love to have you.
You guys have to record it and put it up on YouTube or something, maybe, or
Yeah, well,
Vimeo somewhere.
we need the money.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes,
Ask for money on admission. Yeah, no problem with that. You can do that. Somebody can. Um, I really appreciate your being here today, Melissa. Thanks so much.
thank you so much for having me, Debbie. I really appreciate it. And keep reading and writing, everybody.
All righty. Well, on that note, thank you everyone for listening, and just want to say, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit like. If you're listening to it in the podcast, please leave a review. They help. And take a look at our Patreon page. We are a Patreon-supported podcast, and I'm very grateful to my patrons, believe me. And so on that note, our next guest will be Leanne Sparks. Until then, take care and happy reading.